Kia ora and welcome to 5 Reasons Why, the show where I give you 5 reasons why something is the way it is, and then you proceed to berate me in the comment section. Joke's on you. I'm into that shit. Today, on this episode, we are going to have a chat about the Metaverse.
Should we enter the Metaverse?
In the Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
Metaverse. The Metaverse.
Metaverse is not just a Facebook thing, it's a new phenomenon.
Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
Can we just not have Metaverse be like invented by Facebook?
Yes, the Metaverse. Now, if you've spent any time online recently, you likely will have come across mention of the Metaverse. And while it's pretty clear that the Metaverse is trending, it may not be all that clear what the fuck the Metaverse actually is. There's good reason for that. There is no clear definition of what, when, why, or even how the Metaverse is going to be. Now, you may have heard it touted as a video game or a virtual space, but that's not really accurate. In fact, it's more likely that the Metaverse is a way in which we will experience the internet in the future. A fully realized Metaverse isn't a single virtual space or activity. Instead, it will be a way you and I deeply experience an online connected universe. It'll be agnostic of any particular device or platform. With such a broad definition, it wouldn't surprise you to find that you may already be using a Metaverse Lite or an early version of the Metaverse. So how much do you know about the Metaverse if you're already using it? Well, here are 5 reasons why you should be paying attention to the dawn of the Metaverse. Who will own the Metaverse? With large companies already harvesting your data, it may be worth paying attention to who is going to be key in building the Metaverse. When Facebook wheeled out Mark Zuckerberg in July 2021 to announce their name change to Meta, it triggered a slew of other companies entering the Metaverse themselves. However, at this point, the earliest iterations of a Metaverse-like ecosystem well and truly already existed. Persistent virtual social experiences like Cybertown and Second Life had already come and gone. Large-scale video games were already using virtual spaces and social interaction to enrich their players' video game experience. The likes of VR Chat and Rec Room were already giving us an idea of what a device-agnostic future might look like. So why the sudden interest from these large tech companies into what the Metaverse was going to look like? Well, one of the likely reasons that Meta has signaled their interest in the Metaverse is to do with the underlying technology on what the Metaverse might be built with, and that's going to impact their ability to collect your data.
Firstly, a purposely brief and vague history of the internet. In the early 90s through to around 2004, we had Web 1.0. This version of the internet was largely owned by the individual or corporation. Web pages were largely static, and you would mostly use the internet to look at cat photos and cake recipes without having to worry about someone trying to sell you something. Web 2.0 post-2004 ushered in the age of social media, and users were now able to comment and interact with other users on large numbers of different platforms, all while companies like Facebook and also Facebook sold your data to, let's say, people who would use it to help you make decisions ranging from what tie to buy to what president to elect. Finally, we have the future state of the internet, Web 3.0, the home of fun terms like blockchain, Bitcoin, and NFTs, also likely the foundation to which much of the metaverse will be built in the future.
So the problem for large tech companies is that Web 3.0 means you now own your own data. It's decentralized at its core, so instead of you owning this photo of a loved-up pigeon in one place, it would carry with you in a digital wallet, and you'd be able to take it to whatever virtual space you wanted to. Web 3.0 is still a very long way from becoming standard. In fact, most experts believe the metaverse will likely be built on a Web 2.5, which will have aspects of both 2 and 3. This still poses a problem for the likes of Meta and Apple and Amazon, who thrive on owning their users' data. The usual business model of taking your data and selling it on to a third party for advertising becomes a hell of a lot more difficult if everyone suddenly owns their own data again. The best way to get around this, of course, would be to play a large part in building the foundations of the metaverse. This way you get to have a much larger say in what a mainstream metaverse might look like. The end result, though, is that you, the user, now have a second chance to decide who owns your data. And this is going to become even more important as technology evolves and ways of collecting information about users become even more intrusive. You have a second chance to have a say. Use it wisely. Getting scammed on the internet is basically a daily activity for anybody with an email address, so it won't surprise you that the metaverse will bring with it a whole new buffet of ways for people to try and part you from your hard-earned cash. As the virtual world evolves and starts to take on characteristics of the real world, we could see a mesh of the street scam with the phishing scam. We could see avatar-to-avatar interactions where someone might be swindled into buying virtual goods or taking part in a virtual activity, or being virtually scammed on a virtual street maybe many years away. We already see a very real problem with the technology that's going to be underpinning the metaverse. Now, before we go any further, I am going to have to try and explain the blockchain. Hold on to your seats. In the crudest of terms, the blockchain is a series of blocks of data that once written can no longer be changed, and a ledger of what is on each block is kept across the entirety of the chain. Now, this prevents the chain from being tampered with, and it makes it a very safe way of collecting this information and storing it in a decentralized manner. Real world example, think of it as a time that you made a passing comment on your girlfriend's dress, and then 6 years later she brought it up again in an argument, and for some reason all of her friends seem to know about that one time as well. That's the blockchain. This blockchain technology currently underpins the NFT, crypto, and virtual land markets, all things that are likely going to play a part in the metaverse going forward. And while the blockchain itself is fairly secure, as in it's very difficult to manipulate, it does lack a certain amount of governance, and while users are identifiable, they do maintain an air of anonymity. Take OpenSea as an example. OpenSea is a platform that allows users to create, trade, and buy NFTs using a mixture of real-world and virtual currencies. They recently flip-flopped on restricting the number of NFTs a user could create. This was after a review of their own business showed that nearly 80% of all free NFTs created were either fraudulent or stolen. Countless instances of NFTs and crypto being stolen through hacks and just straight up scams have come to light. Examples of creators taking off with funds before even an NFT can be minted are becoming commonplace, and users are losing millions of dollars. Going forward, we need to see a lot less self-regulation. We need to see industry leaders and policymakers step up and start to make decisions on what the metaverse is going to look like going forward. We need rules and we need boundaries. As much as people hate them, we need something to work within. Until then, it's going to be a virtual Wild West. As I mentioned earlier, you're probably already experiencing some version of the metaverse. The current iteration of the metaverse is very much in its infancy, and that's because the technology required to build a fully realized metaverse is still many years away. We would need faster and far more widely accessible internet, a far more scalable blockchain, and better hardware to fully realize the potential of what a metaverse could be. The metaverse is quite often packaged in the same breath as virtual or augmented reality, and it could be that one day that is primarily how the metaverse is experienced. As for now, the entry point to the metaverse is more likely to be what you're watching this video on. your phone, your tablet, or even your computer. The user base for these products are already established. Many people already use their phones to access video games or social virtual spaces on a daily basis. Games like Roblox or Fortnite have moved to include virtual spaces or virtual events into their game, building on the game experience for their users. Users who would have primarily joined just to play the core game. VR chat and rec room are prime examples of social experiences that are device agnostic. That means they can be accessed by multiple users across multiple devices at the same time. Both of these platforms are largely driven by community-generated content, whether that's virtual spaces or virtual items. This device-agnostic, user-generated experience will be absolutely crucial to building a proper metaverse. The bottom line here is that the metaverse is already a thing. If you were brought up around video games or AOL chat or any virtual experience, you have likely already taken part in the earliest versions of what the metaverse will one day become. In the last few decades, we've seen a dramatic shift for the types of jobs that are in demand globally. As technology, robotics, and automation start to replace more manual work, the need for tech workers exploded globally. It's one of the reasons we now have a Mount Rushmore of tech billionaires essentially running the world. In all likelihood, if we see a change in the future when the metaverse starts to become more of a daily experience, we could see a shift in jobs again. But what a virtual job market would look like inside and outside of the metaverse is still up in the air. Meta have already signaled that they're going to create 10,000 jobs in Europe just to facilitate their version of the metaverse. A lot of other companies are coming on board with this idea, so it's likely that initially we're going to see a large increase in skilled tech workers again on top of the need that is already there. But what if you're not technologically minded? What if your current job does not have a technological equivalent? Well, the metaverse might just change that. For starters, an open and decentralized metaverse would mean a need for unique digital content that will mimic some of today's physical products. Fashion designing, furniture making, architecture, these are all jobs that already have some sort of digital aspect to them. But now that digital aspect could become the final result in a metaverse. It sounds ridiculous now, but you could get a virtual lawnmower to mow your virtual lawn. You could have a virtual pet that requires virtual vets and virtual walkies. Virtual jobs could even be undertaken by people with physical disabilities who are unable to take part in their physical equivalents.
In Japan, there are already trials of remotely controlled robotic avatars working in real cafes. Project Dawn provides disabled workers with conditions that prevent them from leaving their homes the opportunity to remotely control robotic servers via the internet and participate in a real-world service job that would usually be unattainable due to their physical needs.
A virtual world will further lower the risk for these people, opening up jobs they may not have been able to do traditionally. New jobs that don't exist now could also exist going forward. In 2021, the Tokyo Game Show held a completely virtual experience. Now, it was mostly staged, but you could see in the future someone being a virtual stage manager or a virtual roadie for a virtual concert. If you are someone looking to enter the job market or looking to study, these are all things you may want to take into consideration when deciding what you want to do in the future. Anyone who has braved the comment section of a YouTube video will know that people have become all too comfortable with hiding behind their keyboard. A sense of protection goes hand in hand with having a screen between you and the person cussing out your mother. While the metaverse is likely to have a whole new slew of cyber assholes, it's also going to go some way to breaking down some of those cyber walls and reintroducing some social norms to the picture. VR in particular is already very good at reflecting body language. Playing virtual reality games with my friends, I can actually pick up their physical mannerisms. This makes it feel a lot less like I'm playing a video game, and more like I'm having a social experience. New VR headsets and new VR accessories are being built with taking this technology even further. Sony's PSVR 2 is going to feature eye tracking, something that will improve the user's experience but also convey emotion much more effectively than current headsets. Haptic feedback accessories that can reflect vibrations and resistance from the virtual world back to the user in the physical world are also being developed. These will further create immersion in a lot of these virtual spaces. All these things start to add up and add to the immersion of the metaverse. People with limited mobility can live a far more active life in a virtual world because you're removing physical barriers. Software created by companies like Google and Matterport provide 3D scans of streets or the insides of buildings, which mean you can experience any place in the world in a matter of seconds. This opens up an affordable way for people to experience places they may not have been able to get to in the physical world. New ways to educate students who learn more through experience rather than reading. The ability for someone who is not in the crowd to go to a large-scale virtual concert. New ways to experience current physical things like theme park rides. All these things already exist. So you can only imagine what a fully realized version of this would look like in the metaverse. What value could the metaverse add to your life? Could the metaverse self-destruct before it's even managed to get off the ground? Anyone around in the early days of the internet will remember the .com bubble bursting. Likewise, you might also remember the video game crash of the 70s. Both of these instances were caused by large companies investing large amounts of money into products they did not fully understand until all the capital disappeared. The early story of the metaverse is already showing worrying signs that this is going to happen again, as large companies start to shoehorn the word metaverse into everything they're doing, and large amounts of money are being pumped into a system that no one really understands. Tech leaders like Gabe Newell have already made a point of calling out some of these early adopters. In an interview with PC Gamer, Gabe said, "I think the metaverse is bullshit. But my opinion hasn't stopped Facebook from spending billions on R&D or startup investors from flinging millions of dollars at any company that says the word blockchain and metaverse in a sentence." And his point is very valid. One of the biggest obstacles facing a true metaverse right now isn't who is building it. It's the fact that the technology to build it is still many, many years away from being properly implemented. Something that might seem simple in principle, like having an avatar available across multiple virtual worlds, just isn't possible because each virtual world will have been built using a different engine. I can't take a Fortnite banana and put it in Minecraft. It just doesn't work. Global network bandwidth needs to be greatly improved. There's nothing like a heavy dose of lag to remind you where you are not. This, unfortunately, could lead to an early inflection point where metaverse wannabes meet with a deregulated, decentralized financial system to create a perfect storm of crap, thus derailing any chance for a proper metaverse to start to take shape. The most worrying thing about this is that it's also undefined and unregulated. But if it starts to fail, we won't have any real way of stopping it. Well, that's it. Those are my 5 reasons why you should all start paying attention to the growth of the metaverse. Hopefully I have given you something to think about, but do keep in mind, I am barely scratching the surface with all of this shit. Take it away, have a think about it, let me know in the comments section what you would like to see from the metaverse, or if you just think we don't need it at all. Have a great weekend life. I don't know when this is going out. I'm very slow with this sort of thing. Ka kite anō. Ciao.